With how often it's aired on TV around the holidays, it's safe to say that many people, both young and old, have seen A Christmas Story at least once. It's so popular that the film recently got a sequel, A Christmas Story Christmas, that featured the kid actors from the original film grown up. With this story being a classic, we figured that it was about time we break down the characters' morality to see who has a chance at getting their perfect Christmas gift and who's getting coal. Hey guys, I'm Brad with WickedBinge, and this is A Christmas Story Characters, Naughty to Nice. Just to clarify, we're going to be looking at characters from both A Christmas Story and its sequel, so many spoilers ahead. For this list, we're going to be starting with our naughtiest characters before working our way up to the nicest. Getting the gold medal of naughtiness are the Snowmobile Bullies. This was an easy choice, as these bullies are without a doubt the worst people in the sequel. It would be one thing if they stuck to simply roughhousing, chasing down or throwing snowballs at other kids, and that would still be terrible, but at least it wouldn't be nearly as dangerous as trying to run down other kids' snowman creations. They have no regard for their much younger victims or their safety, getting a kick out of causing chaos and making other kids afraid of them. They're also cowards, only making an appearance when there are no adults. It's just as their father says, they're way worse than he ever was. And speaking of which, the silver medal of naughtiness goes to Scut Farkus. He's the infamous bully with yellow eyes from Ralphie's childhood, being a tormentor with a cheesy evil laugh. He mostly sticks to either teasing the younger kids or trying to scare them, and whenever he does catch one of his victims, it often results in some roughhousing and a game of Uncle. His worst moment is definitely when he throws a snowball right at Ralphie's face, followed by him making fun of Ralphie for crying. But in a twist of fate, after Ralphie stands up to Scut, he actually turns things around for himself and ends up becoming a police officer. Although he's still kind of a tormentor and has fun making Ralph squirm in the back of his police cruiser after he arrests him, Scut makes it clear that he's changed a lot. He takes Ralph back to his house and lets him keep the star that he borrowed from Flick's bar instead of arresting him, and even wishes him a Merry Christmas. Scott also doesn't seem to approve of his son's snowmobile escapades, showing that he's at least trying to be a better parent as well.
And now I got some devil spawn of my own.
It's this genuine moment of goodness that allows the former bully to escape the very bottom of our list. The bronze medal of naughtiness goes to the Santa at Higbee's. Although he only has a couple of scenes, one in each movie, this Santa is still infamous. Although he puts up a decent front for the kids, both he and his so-called elves make it clear that not only is it just a job, but it's a job that they hate and only do the bare minimum. Not that we can completely blame them, and to Santa's credit, he is patient with Ralphie when he freezes up. Although, him using his foot to push Ralphie down the slide wasn't a good look. Moving into more neutral territory, we have Randy. Naturally, Randy very much falls into the whiny little brother archetype. Although he's far from being a brat, save for his moments at the dinner table where he's a pretty fussy eater, Randy never really seems to add much. He's focused on his own thing, as most little brothers are, and when Ralph and his friends are getting tormented by Scut, Randy just lies in the snow like a slug, staying out of the conflict altogether. He does have a meaningful moment in the first movie where he gets his and Ralphie's mother so that she can break up the fight between Ralphie and Scut. Looking ahead to the sequel, we learn that Randy has a successful career, but struggles with wanting to face the reality of his father's death, instead choosing to bury his head in the sand, as Ralph puts it, by staying in India instead of coming home. Randy is eventually convinced to return, though only after Ralph guilt-trips him, but it's shown that Randy still does care about his family. He even brings exotic gifts for his nephew and niece, even if they aren't the most age-appropriate. Next is Schwartz, one of Ralphie's two best friends. Schwartz is foul-mouthed and mischievous, and is probably the naughtiest of the trio. After all, he dares Flick to put his tongue on the flagpole, and is the first to run away after Flick gets stuck. We then learn in the sequel that Schwartz hasn't exactly matured since his schoolyard days, being the type of bar patron who runs up his tab and is constantly losing games and bets. Makes him foolish, arrogant, and more than a little unreliable when it comes to paying off debts. The moment where he decides to badmouth Flick's bar for no real reason also isn't a great look.
I don't like your tone.
Even though he makes poor choices, Schwartz is supportive of Ralph in his efforts to give his family a great Christmas, and is loyal to both his friends as an adult. Next is Ralphie's other friend, Flick. As a kid, Flick was the one who was triple dog dared into putting his tongue on a flagpole.
I triple dog dare you!
As painful and probably traumatizing as this moment was, He actually never tells their teacher who dared him, though he does hold just a bit of a grudge against Schwartz for it. As an adult, Flick actually owns one of the more popular bars in town. He offers his friends and those who need it drinks on the house, showing his generosity and, in the case of Schwartz, his patience. However, this patience is limited, and he ends up offering to clear Flick's debt if he manages to go down the ramp. Although Flick triple dog dared Schwartz to do this, he doesn't actually want Schwartz to get himself hurt or killed, wanting more to mess with him. In the end, Flick holds up his end of the bargain, with it being implied that he'll continue allowing Schwartz to drink in his bar, regardless of how often he actually pays. Now we have Ralph's kids, Mark and Julie. Because the sequel is told from Ralph's perspective, we don't get a ton of insight on his kids. They do, however, still play a significant role in the story, and have plenty of naughty and nice moments themselves. For the most part, both kids are well behaved and care a lot about not only each other but their parents. They are still kids, which means that when something goes wrong or it seems like Christmas is going to be a bit lacking in the presents department, they'll act out. Thankfully, this never goes beyond yelling or storming off, so we're not going to dock them too many points. We're also not going to dock any points for their little snowman revenge plot against the snowmobile bullies, since that was in self-defense. We should also mention the gift that Julie gets her father, that being a new radiator for his car, though she's only able to do this after quote-unquote blackmailing one of the Bumpus' kids. It perhaps wasn't the best way to go about it, but it was still sweet that she wanted to give her father such a big and much-needed gift. So, overall, while they could maybe stand to be a bit nicer, they still managed to land firmly on the nice list. Next is Miss Shields. She's another fairly minor character from the first film, though we still wanted to give her a shout-out. As far as teachers go, she really isn't too bad. While Ralphie may have been disappointed with the grade he received on his essay, we feel that overall, Miss Shields is a pretty fair teacher when it comes to both her assignments and grading, as well as her attitude as a teacher. We also have to compliment her for helping Flick during the flagpole fiasco, comforting him and scolding the rest of her class for abandoning him. In general, she really doesn't do anything wrong or act all that mean, making Ralphie's vision of her as a witch unwarranted. Just outside our top 3, we have Ralph. While Ralphie is a good kid, and later on a good man, at heart we can admit that when it comes to his morality, it can sometimes be a bit of a mixed bag.
That's it. A book about strangling Denise from Book Barn.
Like many kids his age, he makes selfish or foolish choices, like when he leaves Flick behind when he's stuck to a flagpole, or when he claims that he learned the F word from Schwartz. He's also sneaky and even lies about how he got hurt when he nearly shoots his eye out. Really, if not for the sequel, we might have ranked Ralphie a bit lower. Thankfully, A Christmas Story Christmas shows that Ralph has matured in some ways, even if his sneakiness hasn't completely gone away. He's a man who cares a lot about his family, wanting to do all he can for his grieving mother, in addition to trying to give his kids the best Christmas ever. Though he's far from perfect, Ralph is a great dad, being both patient and protective of his kids without being too overbearing. For as much as Ralph wanted to be a successful writer, he was willing to give up his writing dreams and go back to the rat race again, for the sake of his family. However, even as an adult, Ralph can still be foolish and self-centered, such as when he goes to borrow the star from Flick's bar. It's an understandable crime, but it's still stealing, and a pretty dumb way of getting himself arrested at that. But again, even in his worst moments, Ralph never comes across as too bratty or selfish, and still earns a spot near the top of our list. The bronze medal of nice goes to Mrs. Parker. When it comes to being a mother, we have to say that Mrs. Parker is both sweet and incredibly caring. One of the first things we learned about her is that she hasn't had a hot meal in years, simply because she's just that willing to make sure her family has everything they need for their meals first. Though she's a bit old-fashioned and can sometimes be nagging, Mrs. Parker is also patient when it comes to both their sons. She does what she needs to encourage Randy to actually eat his food, and she keeps Ralphie's fight with Scut a secret, being sympathetic to his big blow-up. With all these great qualities, you may be wondering why she isn't at the top. Well, Mrs. Parker is sweet, but she has a feistier side and isn't quite as innocent. Like when she accidentally breaks her husband's leg lamp. She even hid her laughter when he failed to put it back together. In the sequel, she has her small moments of selfishness, like when she cheats at Scrabble or when she trips Sandy so that she didn't open the door for the carolers. But none of these moments completely take away from just how kind-hearted and motherly Mrs. Parker typically is. The silver medal of nice goes to Sandy Parker. If we had to describe Sandy in one word, it would definitely have to be supportive. After all, it is Sandy who allows Ralph to take a year off from work so that he can work on a sci-fi novel. And even when she gives constructive criticism, Sandy is encouraging of her husband's writing dreams. Her relationship with her husband is strong, and they're shown to make a great team. Even when things go wrong, Sandy never blames Ralph, nor does she ever hold Ralph's mistakes against him. There's only one instance where her patience falters, that being on Christmas Eve after their tree's star breaks. But given the situation, we can't blame her for being a bit frustrated. We should also mention that it's Sandy who submits Ralph's story to the paper, inadvertently giving him his first real success as a writer, and once again, showing her support. For all these reasons, we feel that Sandy more than earns her spot here, but there's still one character who beats her in terms of niceness, albeit in a more subtle way. The gold medal of good goes to Ralph's father, aka the old man. Now let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. Yes, the old man does have a bit of a temper and is shown yelling several times throughout the film, but for as off-putting as this may seem on the surface, the old man really is more bark than bite. Though he gets really frustrated at certain things, he never takes his anger out on his family, even after the infamous broken leg lamp incident, and quite the opposite in fact. While it may be done in more subtle ways, the old man cares deeply about his family, especially towards the end of both films. In the first film, it's the old man who gets Ralphie the Red Ryder BB gun that he wanted, and it really can't be denied that this is an incredibly sweet moment. He's also the one to tell Ralphie to take off the embarrassing bunny pajamas, much to Ralphie's relief, and after the Bumpus' hounds ruin their Christmas dinner, the old man puts his obvious anger aside and encourages his family to go out for Chinese, so their day isn't ruined. What cements the old man's place at the top is a twist in the sequel. As it turns out, the old man had asked his grandkids what they wanted for Christmas and had been able to get them these gifts before he died, inadvertently saving them from a giftless Christmas.
Mom, these are all from Dad.
Obviously, the old man couldn't have known this at the time, but it still shows just how much he cared about making his family happy and giving them the things they really wanted. For being the secret hero in both films, we're happy to give the old man the title of nicest Christmas story character. Before we go, we'd like to hand out a few quick center medals. Starting with our Darwin medal, we're giving it to Ralph. Even as a grown man, Ralph sometimes let his eagerness and imagination get the better of him, leading to some pretty dumb mistakes. We especially have to wonder why Ralph didn't just try to call Flick or go over to Flick's house, as either choice would have been better than just breaking into his bar. We're also going to give Ralph the Pride Medal, as when it comes to his writing, and especially his sci-fi novel, he refuses to see how dry and wordy it is, instead believing that it's a masterpiece, even after a dozen rejections. His daydreams as both an adult and as a child can also point to him having a fairly big ego. The Sloth Medal goes to Randy. Whether he's lying in the snow like a slug or trying to hide away from his problems in India, Randy probably comes off as the laziest one in the Parker family, even if it's not shown in a traditional sense. Unsurprisingly, the Wrath Medal goes to the old man, both for his anger issues in general regarding things like his home's old furnace and for his infamous grudge against the Bumpus hounds. Finally, the Gluttony Medal goes to Schwartz. While you can't exactly eat beer, Schwartz is still pretty gluttonous when it comes to all the drinks he has at Flick's bar, even going so far as to ask the others if they want to go get a drink after he nearly dies from going off the ramp. Alright guys, that's it. Let us know in the comment section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, Merry Christmas.